Okay, this is your PHED 4 Section B screencast with information as to how to complete the piece of work. So within your PHED 4 section, which is your practical and coursework module for A2, works a little bit similar to AS. So you've got for PHED 4 you've got 40%. With PHED 3, which is your exam, will be 60%. So that's basically split into two lots of 20. So section A will be worth 20%, and you will get a mark out of 60 for that. 60 marks, and that's your one practical performance, which is either in performing, coaching or officiating. And then coursework is worth the other 20%, and so that's B and C, which equals 20%. So you get a mark out of 60 for that as well. So section B, which we're going to start with, is worth, as you can see here, obviously half of that, 30 marks. So section B and section C are weighted equally, and they have the same amount of work, basically 12 pieces of work each. So we'll start with section B, and section B, like section C, is split into two parts. So it's B1 and B2. So B1, you're going to identify and discuss your two relative weaknesses in 3 areas of assessment. So this is worth 15 marks. So this is looking at your own relative weaknesses. Relative is the word that's used because you may be a very, very good performer, and hopefully lots of you are. So you might not have massive weaknesses. This is relative weaknesses in comparison to an elite performer, which is what comes in B2. So we all have our little weaknesses that we can slightly improve. So that's what you're going to discuss there. We'll come on to the 3 areas of assessment. So basically we're just looking at, you're going to look at 6 weaknesses in total, 2 weaknesses from 3 different areas. So 6 in total. You're going to then do that for the elite performer. So you're going to compare it to that elite performer, and you're going to do it in exactly the same weaknesses. So you're comparing your 2 weaknesses against the elite performer, who's obviously not got the weaknesses. They're very, very good at it. So they are like the technical model, if you like. So again, it's 2 weaknesses in 3 areas of assessment, which is another 15 marks for writing about their relative strengths. So just to clarify, we've got it here. So you've got your 6 weaknesses that you're going to discuss for both you and the elite performer, which is 12 pieces of work. Just a little note on the bottom of that. So for each area that we're going to discuss, which we'll go into a little bit more detail in a minute, it's the average of your 2 marks. So you're going to get a mark out of 5. So for area 1, you get a mark out of 5 for weakness 1, and you get a mark out of 5 for weakness 2, and then we take an average per area. So what you'll end up with is 6 marks for B1 and 6 marks for B2. So let's just say that you get 3 for area 1. You get 3 out of 5 and 4 out of 5. That gives you 3.5. So that's an average. Area 2, you get 2 and 2. So that will be an average of 2. Area 3, you get 3 and 5. So that will give you an average of 4 marks. So we would add up the 4, the 2, and the 3.5. which gives you 9.5, which we would round up at the end of each area to 10. So that'll give you a mark out of 10 out of 15 for B1, and then we would look at your marks for B2 again out of 15 to add to that. So this little table just kind of sums that up really, and looks at where these are the areas that you would do your weaknesses. So area 1, area 2, area 3, all self-analysis. So you can see in both, we've got in all three areas, you've got weakness 1, weakness 2, averaged out at 5 marks, 5 marks and 5 marks. So you've got 15 plus 15 for the elite performer, which gives you 30. You need to look up your specific criteria for your 3 areas of assessment. But in most sports, or most certainly team games, you can see them here. We've got attacking skills is area 1, defending skills area 2, and strategies and tactics for area 3. That changes in category 2 for things like swimming and athletics, where you've got event 1 and event 2 would be areas 1 and 2, and you also do strategies and tactics. Dancers, again, are a little bit different, so you've got some technical analysis, gesture motif, etc. for area 2, and then you also have your strategies and tactics is your choreography. So check out your individual criteria for your sports, but in most cases we're looking at attacking, defending and strategies. So from this point on we'll refer to those 3 sections as the areas 1, 2 and 3. So, couple of just little tips, if you like. Your weaknesses identified should be yours if you are a performer or if you are an official, so it's your own. If you are a coach, you need to discuss your performers' weaknesses. So you're going to pick a performer that you coach and discuss their weaknesses. So that just really determines how you're writing it, whether you're talking about yourself or another person. And just making that point again that these are relative weaknesses in comparison to your elite performer who's the perfect, not maybe totally perfect, but as perfect as you could get technical model. Try to keep the weaknesses specific. So try to talk about a certain type of a skill within a certain sort of a situation. So it gives the example here that it's a type of a pass. So if you discussed passing, that would give you probably, you could write probably 10-15 pages on passing if we talked about all the different types of pass and variations. In most sports there are lots of variations. So talk about a certain type of pass. It might be a chest pass in netball, it might be a driven pass in football. It could even be more specific to that, as in doing a chest pass feeding into the circle in netball, or a driven pass up the line as a fullback in football. This will give you a chance to use this appropriate technical language, which is really important. You need to talk about your technical points. So this is where your coaching points, which you should have made use of in first year, doing the coaching role, come in really handy. So you need to look at coaching points. You need to look at the technical breakdown of the skill. It's always a good idea if the skill applies with this, is to break it into the phases of the skill. It'll just give you more to talk about. So normally we talk about the preparation of the skill, what we do in advance, actually executing the skill, that stage, and then the result. So what was the outcome? So that'll give you just a little bit more to talk. The elite performer, they should be a technical model as previously discussed. So this is basically, you're almost saying this is the way to do the skill. However, you need to talk about it as in that they do it like that. So you're not just listing a bunch of coaching points of this is how you should do this skill. You need to discuss about how your named elite performer, who you're going to give a name to, how they actually perform it and what they do, what it is that they do that's very good. It is allowed to change the elite performer for each skill if you want to, and that sometimes fits to show someone, a performer who's particularly good at that one skill that you're talking about at the moment, and then when you do the next skill that you're talking about, a different elite performer who's better at that skill. But it is also allowed, if you want to talk about the same elite performer. If you've got someone like Michael Phelps who's good at everything, you can talk about them for all 6 weaknesses. It might make sense to pick someone who's similar. You don't have to. So if you're doing defensive heading in football and you want to pick a centre half, someone like Vidic, and you're a centre forward, that's absolutely fine. You can still compare those situations, but it doesn't really make sense that you might want to pick someone in the same position as well. It's important just to fit the specification that you've got to name the elite performer. So just name them at the top, but you should really name them as you go through as well. All right. So if you're talking about Rio Ferdinand, you're saying Rio does this and Rio does that. It makes sense to start with B2, even though that comes second on the spec. So the elite performer, because it's easier to write the elite performer one. All right, you were starting from how it should be done, if you like. All right, and then it's probably easier to compare yourself to how the elite performer does it. Marking is subjective, and we will mark the marks, but we're given some guidelines, and obviously our marking has been standardised, and obviously through my experience as a moderator, even more so. But it's the overall quality of the piece of work. So we have got some little grade descriptors that can help, but these aren't totally official. These aren't actually used by the exam board. These are just things that I feel need to go in there to give you a good chance of being able to access the higher marks. So here we go. For limited achievement, you can see that a couple of technical points, no discussion of impacts, no real applied knowledge, no real technical language. If we get into a 2 out of 5, you can see that we're getting into some level of detail with some appropriate language, but limited impacts. The difference, to get into a 3 out of 5, we're getting into looking at 4 to 5 as a guideline figure technical points, maybe not from all of the phases, and now we're starting to use specific technical language. Looking at how the technical points impact on the performance, and we're starting to get some link to actually how it applies into competition. However, there may not be. 3 is the highest mark you can get, alright, if you don't link and apply the technical points to an actual situation, a competitive situation. So this is the most important thing you've got to do. So to access 4 out of 5, this is what will start to happen. So we can see here that you've got 1 or 2 examples from a competition that you've described, the date of the competition, when it happened, what happened, discussed what happened in terms of the technical points that you've already discussed. You're probably going to start to use photos and statistics as well to back this up, right? Which just gives it a bit more rounded sort of piece of work. And then to access a very high 5, the difference now is that we're really given excellent detail here in our technical points, using a very appropriate sport-specific technical language, excellent detailed discussion of impacts on performance, and then we're looking at 2 to 3 very detailed competition examples. So this clearly describes how the performer conducts the skills in situations from a competition. Effective use of photographs and statistics as well. So that's obviously what you are aiming for. A few tips from the exam board. So this is just a do's and don'ts sheet. So we'll quickly have a quick look. Most of this will be stuff that's already been gone through, so I'll go through quickly. So it tells you that you've got to do 2 from each area and 6 in total. Make it specific, as we've said. Link the techniques to you from what you've done in PHED 4. And this is this applying it bit to the fully competitive situation, performance, expedition, or whatever it is that applies to your sport. B2, name it, so it tells you that how important that is. Name the elite performer. Break it down into phases here, all right, and you can use subheadings which do that. And it says here that allows you to compare directly, so that's important. So this bit about, sorry, just let me get rid of that. The bit about that it allows you to compare directly, so you should talk about the same things for you as you do for the elite performer. This is coming on to strategies and tactics, so this is area 3, which is a little bit away from when you're now starting, but again, this is technical weaknesses within a tactical situation. Don't talk about any theory, so don't link it to some theory from the PE course. For example, like selective attention, or the fact that you're anxious, or that you're not fit enough or powerful enough or something, because you're going to do that in section C. Alright, so that's going to happen later. Don't do too general, as we've said about passing. For example, you must do the activity that you're doing in PHED section A. Yeah, if you just do techniques in isolation, you're not going to access high marks. This is the thing about you must apply your knowledge. Clearly, that's just saying, repeating the thing about naming it. Lots of detail, too much detail. Don't talk about strengths, alright. And it's this thing about that it's relative to your elite performer. So, a couple of examples for you, and so this one's on football, as you can see, and the skill or weakness chosen is a driven shot. So they've started with the elite performer, as you can see, which is B2, and we've got Cristiano Ronaldo, which is clearly named here, as you can see, which is good start. So, goes into looking at, and you can see here that we've started in with the first phase preparation. So, good photo, alright, really good photo, with some good little prompts on here, looking at what's happening in the photo. So, starting off with some good technical points. Goes into starting to discuss what Ronaldo's doing here, alright, in a little bit more detail. So you can see that sort of the technical language coming in here around what Ronaldo's doing. His body's in an upright position with his shoulders back, arms are extended away from his body. This allows Ronaldo, so sorry, let me just do that in pink. This allows Ronaldo to maintain his centre of gravity. Before execution, Ronaldo's head is still, his eyes focused on the ball. And this keeps Ronaldo in a stable position. So I've tried to highlight those in different colours there for you, because what we're doing in yellow is using technical points, about the sort of the technical points of how to do the skill, and in pink are the impacts that has on the performance. So again, it goes on. The non-kicking foot is placed in an ideal position, the left foot is planted and pointed directly towards the target, and Ronaldo gives himself an area of space between the ball and his non-kicking foot. You know, that's excellent technical analysis. Like, we're getting into real good detail. A more limited answer there wouldn't have expanded on it. So it might have just talked about the first bit, that the non-kicking foot is placed in an ideal position behind the ball. All right, that would have been a limited answer by itself, and that's what a lot of students fall down on, because they just talk about, oh yeah, well this is perfect. Well, why is it perfect? Alright, so give the stuff about where the left foot is and that the space between the ball and his non-kicking foot, brilliant technical analysis. And then again it goes on to this ensures that the clean contact is made, allows the hips to rotate. So we're getting into some anatomical language here as well around the anatomical analysis of it and generate a high amount of power. Alright, so you can see that really giving some real good impacts as to what is going on here. Goes on and on, bringing in muscles, we've got gluteus maximus in there, etc. Into the execution phase, again a really good photo showing the execution and some of this stuff over here, showing that we've got some real good things that are going on in the photo. So I'm not going to go through, but you can see that this candidate has gone into the detail like we've done before, and obviously you can pause this video if you want to have a look at and have a read of what they've said. Follow through, again, good link to photograph, relevant photo, you can see the technical analysis is being discussed, and then we're into good stuff, competition examples, and these are the important bits as discussed previously. So, can you apply your technical points to an actual real situation? So, good start because this one has been named, there it is, it's Man United versus Porto in the Champions League. Talked about where when the game is, and you can see here that sort of set the scene for it. Ronaldo receives the ball, infield position, he turns, advances, etc. 40 yards from goal, so we've set in the scene, this is what's going on. This is where you should really use some video clips so you can have a look at what's actually happened. He's had a look, his head's in the low position. So again, what we're not just describing it. It's useful to describe what's happened in the situation, but we're not just doing that. We're still relating it to the technical stuff. What's his head doing? What's his non-kicking foot doing? That allowed him to remain balanced and drive his right knee and foot through the ball. Great technical analysis. The hips of Ronaldo rotate such a large distance, etc. Yeah, and then that means the ball leaves at a low trajectory because he's got his right knee over the ball at execution. So a really good competition example, linking the technical analysis to the match. So we go on to the analysis for Real Madrid, same kind of stuff, and then again another Real Madrid. So we've got three very good detailed competition examples of Ronaldo doing different types of shots. So you can see that by reading them that the different examples are showing Ronaldo doing three slightly different shots in three different situations. Moves on to self-analysis. So here I go, similar setup, starting with a photo. We can see again good photo of the preparation stage. Obviously you've got to go out there and get these done, and linked it to some basic points, and then we're going to go into detail. Alright, so you can see here's my execution phase that I'm going to talk about, similar stuff, linked it to the photograph and into the follow through phase. Alright, so good use of the photos to show that actually some of these weaknesses are going on. So we can see the kind of stuff that's still going on up here. You know, this is because my hips remain square to the target. This means after my execution impact, I cannot remain balanced and continue the game. Yeah, goes on, examples. So this is me playing for Spennymoor Town. You can see that the scene has been set nicely, allowing my hips to rotate, I had to lean back, etc. Technical analysis, hips and shoulders being brought in. So we're talking about mechanics, really important. You know, we're talking about hips, shoulders, body alignment, what's going on, what's the mechanical analysis of your technique. Goes on to discuss how this then happened badly, tried to overcompensate, etc. Ended up pulling the ball towards goal. Instead of connecting with the laces, I connected with an area between the laces and the instep, and it missed the target. So it goes on obviously into some other examples, couple more. There we go, finish it off. Some little stats put in. and you can see that we're talking about how many shots have I had, how many off target, etc., to compare to my elite performer. Just a different example, just showing you a different way to do it. So the first example just talked through it in their own time, if you like. This example follows a little template which you can use if you want to. And I'm not going to go through it, what they've talked about. Again, this is excellent work and was marked as 5s, which as was the previous piece of work. But this one has used the technical points so we've got technical point 1 and then impact 1. Right, so we've talked about the first one is about a wide base, knees position, light on your toes, etc. Alright, talked about why that's important. Talked about why not doing that has an impact negatively on their performance. And then going on to technical point 2. So you can see technical point 2 is about body position and stance and the impacts of this. Technical point 3 is about shoulders, arms and hips. So again, mechanical analysis, there's the impacts of not getting those body parts into the right position, and so into 4 and 5. So there's a sort of a ballpark figure, 5 technical points discussed in detail with the impacts would be a good amount to do. And then we're into the competition example. So you can see here's my number 1. This is what happened, etc. Number 2 and number 3. So again, discussing through it, linking in the technical points into that. Some stats in the bottom as well. So just that there's different ways to do it. So you can see that this candidate has put some stats in from that match. How many times did I hold them? How many successful shots did I have from holding that space? And obviously this will be then compared to the elite performer. So you can see again a slightly different way of doing the photographs. So you can see that we're actually annotating these photographs with the arrows, which is good, so pointing to what's going on here. This is what I'm trying to do. I'm attempting to do this. My body is not upright, etc. And we can see that through the arrow being put on there. So that's, I think, a very useful way to use the photographs to actually animate parts of it. So again, done that, which is good. And second photograph there, talking about the timing of the space. Goes into the elite performer, so you can see that this is obviously going to talk about how good they are. Pamela Cookie, this, that and the other, exactly the same 5 points. Yeah, so we've done the technical point 5 is the timing, which it was for her, etc. Competition examples. Again for the elite performer, so we're sticking to a bit more of a template here. Stats exactly the same, and again the good use of the photographs. So you can see this is what Pamela's doing with her arms. I'm pointing to them on the photograph. This is what, her feet wide stance and her timing, etc. And this is what's happening on that one. So important stuff. Now we've looked at what you need to do, when you need to do it by. So we're in A2 fortnight now. By the end of this week, this is what we want you to have done, had a go at as a starter. Area 1 and Area 2. So that's quite a lot. Weakness 1, weakness 2, don't forget. And weakness 1, weakness 2 for Area 2 as well. For both the self-analysis and elite performer. So yes, we are looking at quite a few bits of work, but we just want you to do the first bit. So have a go at the technical points and the impacts, so the discussion of all of that. Alright, so we're not looking at the examples yet because you're going to do that over the summer. So can you get down some technical coaching points around the elite performer and then yourself for those first 4 weaknesses. So obviously the clever ones amongst you have worked out that is, yes kids, 8 pieces of work. Wowzer. But you have got the the comfort of using the lessons during A2 fortnight, which is the bonus ball. So if you use those lessons wisely, to be honest, you should be able to get most of the work done within the lessons. Over the summer, this is what you need to get done. Improve those bits, yeah? So act on the feedback that you're given, and then add in the other stuff. So the competition examples, which are really important, the stats if you can get some, and the photos if you can get some. So by the time you come back, first week back, fully complete those first 8, yes, weaknesses for Area 1 and Area 2. This puts you, if you get all of those fully completed and handed in that week, alright, they will get marked then with feedback obviously, so you can then improve those 8 weaknesses, but they shouldn't be far away, which means we can crack on and do Area 3 in that first half term. So that'll be the plan very quickly for you. Area 3, which is the strategies and tactics, which you're leaving for now because it's a little bit different. So the last 2 weaknesses for yourself and the elite performer will be your work from then on into that first month. Trying to get all of that finished by the end of September in the first month, and then that gives you, and this is very generous of us, up to October, so this is October half term, the 24th, to finish all of that. Those marks will then stand. In October, we finish Section B. The reason is, at the bottom here, it's because we will start Section C. Remember, you've got another 12 bits of work to do. Alright, so we need to crack on with Section C. So by October half term, we finish Section B and put it on the shelf. Done. So hope that hasn't bored you too much, and explains things, and that you'll be able to use this as a bit of a resource to come back to as you go through, and particularly over the summer, and using the examples hopefully. So good luck with it and enjoy doing your coursework over this summer. Thank you very much.